Hey everyone, my name is Ji Wang, and I am a PhD student from North Carolina State University. So today in this video, I will introduce a tool we developed for the feeder load disaggregation. This tool is developed by me under the supervision of my advisor, Dr. Ning Lu. First, let me introduce some background of this tool. So when electric utility want to analyze a distribution feeder, usually the data they have are the load profile at feeder head and the distribution transformer rating at each load node. But for the house level load profile, because of the privacy concern, they are not able to release the detail of this data to researchers. They can only provide the data from the houses that agree to share their data, which means the house level data researchers have made from the same area but not from the specific feeder. Even for the houses belongs to this feeder, they do not know which house locates at which load node either. Therefore, in the past, while doing feeder analysis, people will use the shape of feeder head load profile to all the load nodes. They will scale the shape up or down based on each transformer rating. However, this method is unrealistic and will either over or underestimate the voltage change at each load node. So in order to improve that method, we developed this feeder load disaggregation tool to use the limited house level smart meter data we have to generate a unique load profile for each load node. And we will also know that the number of houses at each load node and also the detailed house level load profile for each house. Now I will introduce how to use this tool to model the load of a distribution feeder. This is the interface of this feeder load allocation tool. The information we have will be a weekly feeder head load profile and a group of house level smart meter data. The goal is to select the houses which may locate in this feeder, and their aggregated load profile will match the actual feeder head load profile. After the houses are selected, the next thing will be to allocate them down to each load node based on the distribution transformer rating. In order to use this tool, the first thing is to select the feeder we want to model. We can click the Select Feeder button and a window will pop up. We can select the feeder we want in this window and click the Plot Feeder Head Profile button. This step may take some time because it is also uploading a large amount of data that we need to use. Now you can see that the feeder head load profile is plotted. And we have that data for 1 year. We need to select the week we want to do the feeder load allocation. For example, here I will select week 1. And you can see that the feeder head load profile of this week will be highlighted in red. After that, we can close this window and go back to the main interface. Then we can click the Upload Load Profiles button. You can see that the plot on the right-hand side will be the feeder head load profile for the week we just selected. And the two figures on the left-hand side are the yearly load consumption distribution for the residential houses and the commercial houses that is in our load pool. So this is a statistic of the smart meter data. The top one will be for the residential house and the lower one is for the commercial house. So for example, you can see that for the residential house, most houses consume their yearly consumption is between 8 to 12 megawatt hour. The next thing is to select some parameters for the feeder load allocation. So we can click the Setup Load Compensation button. First is to select how many random loads you want. So random loads means that when we select the houses, how many percentage of the random are randomly selected. So for example, for here it is 40%, and then the rest of load we will use the shape matching method to select. But for the first 40%, we will just randomly select it. We can also decide that how many percentage of residential load and the commercial load to be here in this match. For here we will use we want the feeder has 60% of residential load and 40% of commercial load. So after we set this number, we just click the set button, and you can see that these parameters will also appear on the main interface. Then the next thing is to click the run button, and the algorithm will be run, and we will get the result here. So now we can take a look at the result. So for the figure on the right hand side, so the black line is the aggregated feeder height profile for the house we selected. So you can see that the two shapes are very similar. And the red line below will be the aggregated feeder height profile for the houses which are randomly selected. So when we set that to be 40%, which means that the peak of this red line will be the 40% of the value of the blue line. So the reason we are comparing the peak with the value is because we want to make sure that the red line will not be accessed the blue line. And for the two figures on the left hand side, so the red part will be the histogram of how for the house we selected to be in this feeder, that what's their yearly load consumption distribution. We can also see some statistical result of the performance of this algorithm. So we can click the get button and to get these numbers. So you can see that for the residential ratio and the commercial ratio, the result is exactly the same with the target. And in this run, we selected 375 residential houses and 97 commercial houses. And we can also see the arrow of this result. So you can see the average absolute arrow between the target profile and the result, the profile we get from the simulation is around 6%. And you can also see, if you click help, you can also see the formula I use to calculate the average arrow and the average absolute arrow here. Another thing need to mention here is that when the algorithm is running, it also allocates these selected houses down to each load node based on their transformer rating. So because it's a little hard to display that kind of thing in this interface, so it didn't show here, but it is already done here in the when it is running, and all this information are saved in your computer. So you can know that at each load node how many houses are there and what is its aggregated load profile look like at each node. So we can use this information to do the feeder analysis. For example, you can use OpenDSS and this load information to do a quasi-static time series simulation. So here is the brief introduction of this feeder load allocation tool. So if you are interested in this tool, or you have maybe some questions about the detail of this tool, feel free to email me, and my email address is also shown here. So thank you for listening. Bye.